Hi everyone, I wanted to use this really short video to talk to you about how to create an outline for your analytical report. You are still working on the same topic that you've done all the hard work on related to your annotated bib and your research proposal and your lit review, and now you're building out the actual report. So remember that this is where you take the research you already have and you transform it into a report that analyzes the evidence and presents a recommendation for a really specific audience. So you already have the foundation. You've been working on it for several weeks now, but now is the point where you take all of that foundation and transform it into an analytical report. This handout that I'm showing here is called the Outline Starter. That's part of your assignment. And I wanted to just talk to you about how it should work for you. So over here on page 1 is a generic outline for an analytical report that's directly from our textbook chapter about analytical reports. It outlines all the major parts that you should include in your introduction, and then it calls the body of your report a data section. So what I want to point out here is that depending on the type of analysis that you're going to do, feasibility, causal, or comparative analysis, that will determine what you do in this body section. So you're going to take these topics and substitute them in over here depending on the type of analysis that you want to do. So the body of your report is your feasibility, causal, or comparative analysis, and this guide gives you some topics that you might expand and build out depending on the research you have so far, and again, depending on whether you're doing feasibility, causal, or comparative analysis. On page 2, it gives you an example of how you could start to build out that body section into an outline. So the example here that I wanted to show you is from that report about the Libby mine disaster. I'm going to go down here to page 2 so I can zoom in a little bit for you. So this person did a causal analysis to look at the effects of the Libby asbestos mine disaster on the local community. And so an effects section is one of the generic sections that we see here in the outline. So he did causal analysis, so he's taking these things and plugging them into the data section. One of the main topics that he knows he needs to talk about is what the effects are or what the causes are, right? So he knows I need to talk about effects. In my research, I found one of the main effects for my particular topic is health impacts. So that's a kind of effect that I want to cover in my paper. So when he builds his outline, the first body section he's going to outline is this health impacts section, which fits as an effect for his causal analysis. So then what he has is this really strong kind of topic sentence here, and then some bullets or dot points where he outlines what kind of evidence he's going to use to support this effect section that he's writing. So he's writing about health impacts as one of the effects in his causal analysis, and a lot of the research that he needs to talk about that he already has. But as he thinks about the audience for his analytical report, he might also want to add additional evidence or additional research as well. So some examples of things he already had were probably some of this more scholarly research that went into the lit review and the annotated bib, right? So some studies that talk about what happens with lung disease, a study that shows how people in Libby have higher rates of some diseases than other people in Montana, and then another academic study about a case study of families that have lived near the Libby mine disaster. But then he thinks, I'm talking to local public health officials, trying to get them to increase funding for medical treatment for people in Libby and increase support for them. So they might also want to hear some personal stories from people who've been impacted by this accident. So he brings in some things that didn't fit in his lit review as well. One of those is a newspaper article, which has interviews from people affected by the disaster. Another one is a map to show how the mine disaster happened and how far the asbestos spread. The newspaper and the map for sure weren't in his original lit review, but they're things that he thinks would fit well here for the new audience that he's writing to make recommendations to. So again, in summary, you are taking these generic topics over here, depending on what type of analysis you're doing, plugging them into the body of your report. Then you're writing a really strong main point statement for each of those sections, and then mapping out what evidence you'll use to support that main point. Again, using existing evidence you've already been working on, as well as new evidence that you're finding that will work for your specific audience. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope this helps you get your outline going.